Achayim v'li bracha, to life and to blessings. Chaim. How well do you know your closest person to you? Are you able to answer all of their problems? Do you know them so well that when they make a move, you can see what their issue is? They make a little face. You know what their problem is, and you know how to answer and to be there for them in their question, in their difficulty. How well? Is there one person that we can do that for? That would be amazing if we could, right? There was one person. Actually, in a sense, that's what marriage is all about. Marriage is about being able to be so attuned. I talk to myself when I'm speaking now. I speak to myself. If anybody else wants to listen, that's good. Anybody else wants to listen, that's fine. That's what marriage is to be so attuned that, just by a look on the face, you already know what the problem is and you know how to address and to be there for one spouse. Now, that's quite an accomplishment. That's quite something. And that indeed is something to strive towards. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We're at the beginning of the Tanya. Actually, tomorrow we'll start chapter 1. Today we conclude the compiler's foreword. Every book has a foreword, and the Alter Rebbe writes his foreword. He calls it that he's only a compiler, even though the teachings are revolutionary. But as all teachings in Torah, they're always based on previous saintly, holy teachers and books. So in that sense, yes, it's compiling, but the way and the perspective that he has on all those teachings is unique. And today we're going to see something very unique. He makes a very bold statement that I'm not certain anybody else has ever made. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Maimonides said it in his foreword, that all you need for Jewish law, in order to know how to live the do's and don'ts of Judaism, it's sufficient to learn Chumash, 5 books of Moses, right? And to learn his compendium, as we do every day, right? As we learn Mishnah Torah, because through that you'll have knowledge of every single mitzvah. And you don't need anything else. And that was a bold statement that he made in his times. Now the Alter Rebbe is going to make a bold statement and is follows. If you recall from yesterday, he was making the argument actually against his book, right? Because a book is pending on the writer of the book and the one who learns the book. The writer can only know, can only have a perspective of so much in life because they're living their life and they have their perspective. So when they write, they're based on their perspective. Even if it's a holy writing, it still has that kind of limitation, certain limitation at least. Or even if it's holy writings and it doesn't have, because then it's part of Torah, it doesn't have the limitations, because then it's part of God's infinite wisdom, but it's hidden there, right? And therefore the recipient, the one who's learning the book, they might not be able to find the message that's meant for them specifically. It could be a general message for everybody, but I need specifically for me to answer my questions in life, to answer what I'm going through in life. Right? And when we're talking about what you're going through in life and how that you could properly and better serve God, which will deal with your relationships, will deal with um, anxiety that you have, perhaps even depression, whatever it is that a person is going through. We all go through things and we need answers. So if you go to the Rebbe and have a private audience with him, well, he knows your soul. He knows every soul. So he knows exactly what you need. How could a book replace that? Even if the book is from the same master teacher, right? Still from, I might not find the answers for me here. That was an argument that he said yesterday against the book. But he comes back now and he says like this in today's teachings. So he says, I speak, however, to those who know me well, each and every one of Anash. Anash means the Hasidic community of our country and countries nearby. We've had affectionate words that we've exchanged between us in private audience. You have revealed to me the secrets of your heart, of all issues that you have in matters that relate to the service of God. So to them, my words will seep through to their hearts. And these pamphlets that are entitled Likutei Amarim, a compilation of teachings that are compiled from books and teachers of heavenly saintliness, will be then penetrate into their heart. Right. So he says now something very bold. All of them are answers to the many questions posed continuously by those who are seeking advice, each according to their stature in their service of God, to receive guidance in this service of God. He says, time doesn't permit anymore that I can see everybody individually and to guide them, right? And not only that, not only time, but there's also forgetfulness. In other words, what does it mean forgetfulness? If you were guided, right, you have to remember, people didn't go once a month, once a year to the Rebbe. They might have lived very far away. So they might have gone it even once a year or once 3 years. So they got guidance, but what happens? We forget. We forget, right? So therefore, he says, and this is a very powerful, I've recorded all of the replies to all the questions to preserve as a sign and to serve as a reminder to everyone's mind. In other words, this book has the answer to every single question that you've ever had. And therefore, you don't need to have a private audience with me. Because this book, you will find tranquility for your soul and true counsel on everything that you find difficult in the service of God. That's a pretty strong statement. I'm not certain, besides Maimonides, as I mentioned earlier, right, that he says about his book, but that book is about the do's and the don'ts, how to observe Shabbos, how to put on tefillin, how to pray to God, right? That's what, those are, halachic rulings, as opposed to here, we're talking about matters of the soul. I'm down. I'm not feeling joy. I don't feel God's presence in my life, right? I'm having difficulty in my marriage. I'm having difficulty with my children, and so on and so forth. All of those are questions in the service of God. They will all be answered here. They will all be answered in this book. This is what he said, and you'll find tranquility. Now he says, remember we had a problem before that he mentioned. What if I don't find my place here? What if I'm not smart enough, right, to understand the teachings from this book, right? So he says that you need to discuss in your problems with those scholars in your town, and they will help you to find how the teachings are speaking to you personally. And now he says a request to those teachers, those mentors, don't keep silent. If someone's asking you for advice, you have to be there for them. Don't have false humility, right? So, wow, who am I to help you in your personal life? Go read the book yourself, right? No, don't do that. He actually says it's a bitter punishment for those who are teachers and mentors and can advise, and they don't. That's withholding. The term is like withholding food from somebody, right? Potiphar's food was, we just learned, was what, right? What's the food for us? Torah. For us, food is Torah, right? Right? Potiphar, he was filled with something else. We're filled with Torah. So a person who holds back food, meaning Torah, wisdom from another, the sages say that's a bitter end to that person. In other words, you have wisdom, you have you can help somebody, and you hold back. That's right. So he's speaking out to those teachers, those mentors, that they need to be there for the individual who is having a struggle and can't find the answer themselves in the teachings. And further, those who do help, their reward is great. Their great is because God will enlighten the eyes of both of them. In other words, through helping the other, you yourself will become more enlightened for yourself. That term is used by the wealthy person giving to the pauper, literally charity, right? That that not only are you getting, is the pauper that getting food for themselves, literally, that they can eat, but you are also enlightened by God as a result. And thus God will cause his face to shine upon them and his countenance, which provides life. So may he who provides life to the living grant us the privilege of living to see the days when no longer will one teacher need to teach another. Now, a teacher will need to teach another. Times of Mashiach, he's making reference to, because then we will all know God. We'll all know God from the smallest to the greatest.
Who is then in the beginning of your sentence? The beginning of that sentence, you just.
Well, then, meaning the learned and the non-learned, right? The learned and the non-learned, right? Because now you need the learned to help the non-learned, right? But then the blessing is that through this, may then we come to a time where you don't need someone to teach you, meaning in times of Mashiach, because we will know God, right, from experience of our own experience in the world and in life itself, because the knowledge of God will fill the earth as the waters fill the sea. Amen, and may it be his will. So he concludes now something similar to what the approbations, we had 3 approbations a couple days ago from various scholars, that he says these pamphlets that have been distributed to the Hasidic community were numerous, and many of them were because they were copied by hand initially, right? So there were people who copied wrong and people who purposely copied wrong, right? And therefore, there were many errors. And the spirit,
Purposely copied wrong.
that's what led to, that was part of what they used in, in informing, the government of Russia against him. Look what he's teaching, right? Look what he's teaching. Look what he's saying. And they would bring a copy and show, this and that,
Okay.
right? So the spirit of noble men that has been previously mentioned, that were moved to make a personal and financial effort to now bring it to print, this book, and to make sure that there's no errors. I congratulate them for their worthy deed. Cursed will be the person who encroaches on them, what they did. In other words, if someone's going to print it, they are encroaching on that, what they have done, and therefore, as the verse says in Deuteronomy, that they will be cursed, which I'm only coming to reinforce that which is already stated in the Torah, that if someone, made an investment, um, and now someone's going to come and try to, encroach on their investment, that's what it means to be cursed. So there's a strict prohibition on anybody publishing any of these teachings for 5 years from the time of printing. May be pleasant for those who comply, and may there be blessed with only good. These are the words of the compiler of the above mentioned Likutei Amorim, the compiler of teachings. That's the end of the compilers. Forward. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts?
Well, the upshot is we're lucky we have the rabbi to be able to teach us. That's the
I don't know.
That's the point, yes. That's the point about
L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim v'racha.
Thank you for your devotion. Thank you for your devotion.
L'chaim v'racha. L'chaim.
Students.
Yeah. So, but to add to Pesach, to add to what you're saying, I clearly see in giving over the teachings on how that has enlightened me, let alone helping another, or that obviously when you're helping someone else, right? But I see literally what he says over here, that me'irim shnehem, that it's enlightening both, right?
Then teaching knows that. I mean, that's like a private evidence.
Yeah,
It's not hidden from view for anybody.
true. True.
The giver is given to.
Yeah, exactly.
More than the receiver than here.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to charity, so the mitzvah of charity is that you're giving some money, right? That's what you're giving. So the receiver is only getting money. Well, that money they can buy bread and survive, fine. But they're only surviving when they get money, right? The person who gave the charity, what are they doing? They're thriving. Why? Because they connected with God through the act of giving. So they got a lot more than the person who received. A complete flip on how you would naturally see something, right? Most people feel when they gave, I lost something. I lost some money. I lost money that I could have used and had a better meal this morning. I would have had shakshuka instead if I had, if I didn't give away the money. But I gave away some money, so now I only got, regular eggs, right? So I lost something by giving money, right? That's how most people love. Okay, I got to give anyways. Anyways, you got to give. So you do it. That's how most people would look at it, right? You are losing something. Sages say, no. You're actually gaining more than what you gave. Because the person got some money, all he's getting is some eggs and bread. But you got a divine connection in that moment with God Almighty through the act of giving. You got divinity. Oh, nothing can compare to that. Nothing can compare. The difference is that you need to be taught. The other one, you're not taught. You don't need to be taught,
No.
right? That I'm giving away something that's mine that I could benefit my life with and make my life more pleasant, right? You don't need to be taught that. That's ingrained in our animal instinct, right? But what we do need to be taught is no, you're gaining something more, right? You're gaining something more. Yeah, amazing, amazing.
Michelet says something very interesting in that. It says, he who holds back impoverishes himself. He who gives generously increases his riches.
Yeah. So, folks, first of all, we welcome the new people that are here. We have a new people that are involved now in learning Tanya, because many of you brought friends, right? Also, we are now on the platform on Facebook of JLI, Jewish Learning Institute, and we welcome those people. And we should increase in having more people join us. Tomorrow, chapter 1, we begin, and looking forward. All right, Rambam coming up. Thank you, folks.